person could say all they want. They can preach peace. Peace has to be in our own life. When we ask for peace in our life, let you feel and share. That's another concept. I can go on and on. I would like to read a little bit from Isaiah. First in chapter 2, verse 1 of Amos. Prophesies concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Judah, otherwise known as Judea and Samaria. You're not allowed to say Judea and Samaria in the sea. Bank. And it shall be at the end of the days. Hadavar asher chaza Yeshayahu. This is the vision that Isaiah saw at the end of days. That the mountains of the Lord's house shall be firmly established at the top of the mountains. And it shall be raised above the hills, and the nations shall stream to it. It doesn't say the Jews will stream to it. It doesn't say the Jews will stream to it. The nations will stream to it. He continues in verse 2, and many people shall go, and they shall say, come, let us go up to the Lord's mount, to the house of the God of Jacob. Let him teach us of his ways. Of the Lord comes. Then verse 4 is very interesting. And he shall judge between the nations, and he's going to reprove many people. The kisses gives out more anti-Israel resolutions than any other resolution ever in their body, has this inscribed on their wall. This verse 4. And the prophet, the Jewish prophet, who walked the hills of Yerushalayim and Judah. That's where he hung out. So, right, what's going to happen? They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears are going to be turned into pruning hooks. And nation shall not lift a sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Why won't they learn war anymore? In the beginning of the Jewish nation, the first thing God does to the Jewish people, when they leave Egypt, the first thing he does is in the Bible. He makes a standing army. Here at the end of that view of God, the vision of God, is what? War. You won't see a sword as that metal. Something to chapter 11. V'yatza chaytem egeze Yishai, and a shoot shall spring forth from the stem of Jesse, from his roots, and the Spirit of the Lord shall. You know what peace is? A spirit of wisdom, a spirit of understanding. You want to know what peace looks like? You know what a Messiah will bring? This is the Messiah. A spirit of understanding, a spirit of counsel, not of trying to hurt somebody, not of trying to get something. Counsel means that you're helping people. And heroism, the spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. Peace without a right? And the Lord, and neither would the judge. Right? Continues going over there. Speech. There won't be no harm. The lamb will lie with the wolf. Everybody, all the nations of the world will stream to the prayer, right? Why? Why is all this going to happen? For the land shall be full of knowledge of the Lord. How? To what extent? Maimonides finishes his magnum opus with this verse. Waters cover the sea. The sea. The non-Jews war described harsh harshness and those different all come when there's when that's of God. But when the world is full of the knowledge of the Lord, so who are these blessings? This is the Jewish prophets to the Jewish nation. We will be at peace. We will come to Jerusalem. House of God. House of God. No. The house of God of all peoples. Why? Because we all have a mission to do. May God bless us, all of us here in this room, with our efforts, with our learning, implementing our goodness, but mainly through our acts of godliness. May we do our part, because we're not going to do it. May we be blessed myself together with you and yourselves with me. May we be blessed sooner rather than later. I think for now, I'll stop over here. And if there's time for questions, and the questions don't have to pertain to the issues that we spoke about. There are certain things that are inseparable. Okay? So I told you there's 613 commandments for the Jewish people in the Bible, right? More than 50% of them cannot be acted upon outside of the land. More than 50% of those laws pertain to the land of Israel and are only effective in the land of Israel. Like, for instance, all the agricultural laws, the fallowing of the land, I can go on and on and on. You cannot separate the Jewish people from the land. In fact, I'll make a preposterous claim here now, but a biblical claim. The land of Israel is the only earthly piece of property that has ever been attributed to and given and granted to forever, a time again and again and again in the Bible, to a nation. If you look at the way God runs the rest of the world, how does a nation get a piece of property? Through conquering. The only piece of parcel in the entire Bible that God gives to a nation is Israel. So that's the biblical perspective. Practically speaking, I will tell you that I've always had a big, beautiful Jewish community, at least from the first major exile, the Babylonian exile, and always treated the Jewish people just as good as it would any other second-class citizen. Not worse than that, though. Today, there's 25,000 Jews that are living in Tehran or in its suburbs. Nobody specifically hurts them. That's the facts on history. Again, we have to be intellectually honest here. That's the facts on the ground. What they mean, I'm not sure what they mean. Gotta ask them what they mean. If I trust that there is that distinction, absolutely not. And separate them from the land. It's not possible. The other thing is the Bible. You can't separate them from the Bible. And separate them from God. And you shouldn't be able to separate them from God. I'm not only going to listen. If you don't mind, if your pastor allows me to, should I say, would that be okay? To pass that out? No. Just pass those around. Just go through them, basically believing in God, a real God, meaning a God that actually engages and is interested in the relationship between us and Him and us. Not the profane God. You're not allowed to blasphemy, for instance. That's out of the question. Not to murder, right? Any human, okay? Any human can be murdered. Not to eat a limb taken from a living animal. To respect the life and function of all that you consume. So the Jewish people, through the Noahide laws that were universal principles, fighting for animal rights in its proper measure for generations, all the way back to, all right, not to steal, to respect property of others. We see property as God granted. So when you take something that doesn't belong to you, you're taking a piece of God that belongs to someone else and stealing a piece of God. Harness and sublimate, I should say, the human libido. So incest, adultery, rape are all forbidden. To establish courts of law and ensure justice in our world, which our country is, from a Jewish perspective, the laws of our country, the fairness of the laws of our country are literally of biblical proportion. And this was demanded of all nations at all times. They should have had courts of true justice. Those are the 7 universal principles. And again, I cannot see any religion that doesn't have this literally ingrained within its religion. If we can agree on these 7, I think a lot of other things would be very much easier to deal with. Any other questions? So you guys are being nice, basically. It's either that or you just want to get home. They're both legitimate positions. I'm sorry, please. I didn't take your names.
My name is Larry Everhart.
Nice to meet you.
Just a little bit about your own background. There's 3 major Jewish traditions in the United States: conservative, Reformed, and Orthodox. Where do you identify yourself?
Labels, in general, are made for shirts, jackets, shoes. And if you look in the Bible, you will not find any of those. You find the Jewish people, the children of Israel, the children of Abraham, the children of Jacob. Many different ways of calling them, but you find them as a nation. They're all political constructs, and they're all constructs of creature comfort. It's a way of fashioning God in our image. So I personally, and enter down the block, we have members of all types of Jewish people, all backgrounds. To us, I don't even recognize it. However, let's use the we're use of the word, right? Let's be more simple. I would probably fall in the scale of the ultra-Orthodox, and if one day when the media, a certain element of the media, when they're going to run out of saying ultra-Orthodox, today already they're saying ultra-Orthodox, and one day they're going to add a few more ultra-Orthodox. They'll say ultra-conservative, ultra right-winger. And they're going to just keep adding ultras. What am I really saying? You have God and His mission. So the Orthodox people try. They're humans. They have issues. They try their best to observe their life, to conduct their life, to live their life by the traditions and the laws and the concepts of the Torah, of the Bible. So when God said that He's commanding us 10 commandments, we don't see them as suggestions. We see them as commandments, as what they are. So if you want to know, so what about conservative and reform? It's, again, creature comfort. Most of us want to be good in the eyes of God. It's a very interesting thing that in the 21st century, most human beings, there was a survey in America, by the way, most people pray. Even people that don't profess, most people want to be good in the eyes of God. So there's 2 ways of living your life. You can either have the bar where God put it and constantly strive to measure up to that. And till the Messiah comes, we're going to fall short because we're going to have that blockage, as we spoke. Or you could bring it down and say, wow, I'm great. Traditional people don't feel like doing that. It's an injustice to ourselves and to God, and it's not true. It's very important in life, from our perspective. God has a few names that God has. Emes is one of His most important names. Truth is one of the most important attributes of God. To a faithful person, truth should be the most important thing. So, comfortable. Truth can be very uncomfortable. The bar that God sets for us finite beings to live His infinite vision is very high. But we're not looking to be comfortable. We're looking to try to fulfill our purpose, fulfill His mission that He gives us. So if from our perspective, from a traditional perspective, these are all nice names, but so I want to caution you, and perhaps this is true about your own religion. When you ask the rabbi a question, I hope you're not asking the rabbi what his personal opinion is, because his or her personal opinion is just as good as anybody else's. I hope that when you ask a clergy member a question, you're asking them from your perspective of the God-given book. What does God want? Not what do you want. What do you, okay. Rabbi, what do you think about marriages? You want to know what I think. If I'm a Western, I grew up in a Western society, and I have certain sensitivities that don't match up with God's wish. Is that it? It shouldn't be. So if you're asking respect for Orthodox, Reform, Conservative, that's the opposite. They're all names just to make the masses feel good about what they decided before they even looked in the book. So they have a certain decision that, for instance, kosher is not easy. In Oklahoma, it's not easy to keep the kosher dietary laws. So there are two ways of doing it. You can strive to try to live up to it, or you could say it's okay not to keep kosher. All right?
If somebody really wants to be converting, what is the procedure for them? What is required of them?
You're asking me,
two
and
people in our family, a niece and two people that have converted.
you're asking me a very difficult question because every human is different. The basic requirements is exactly what was required of the Jewish people at Sinai. If you look at chapter 19 of Exodus, you will find all you need to know about conversion. God comes to them through Moses and propositions them. Says, if you follow in my ways and you follow my commandments, I will make you a nation of teachers, a nation of priests, a nation of whatever you want to call them, as people that will follow God. So the first thing is to accept the 613 commandments that you're going to live by them. And then God said they should prepare themselves. And one of the ways to prepare is they went to the mikveh. They had to immerse in a spiritual body of water. How that process plays itself out is very hard to know. Because in a sense, many people today, when they convert, and I don't want to speak for other religions, I can speak about Judaism, many conversions today are conversions of convenience. So let's say a boy and girl fall in love, and the other family is not excited about their religion. Okay, we'll convert. You're not converting. Conversion is a serious process. A certain measure in life, a certain mission that you're taking upon yourself.
If they do convert, do they
Yeah.
still have to learn the Hebrew language?
I don't see how they can. I personally would not be involved in a conversion if they didn't learn it. So even before they converted, how could they be part of a people who steeped in that language? All the writings of God in that language. So it's a hard. People come to me. How long does it take to convert? Tell me. The real conversion shouldn't be more than a moment because it's a very deep calling within you, saying that this is what you. And then there's a lot of practical things in life that you have to adopt. I find that a lot of conversions in life. Also, you have people that jump from place to place. All right.
Well, I never felt free to ask them.
You can ask anything. An honest question should have to be sensitive to other people, but from somebody, a teacher, you should be able to ask anything that's honest and true as a question.
I just wanted to, mine's more of a thank you than a question. We have grandchildren that are being raised by the other set of grandparents who have converted to Judaism. And it's been a struggle for us because we're not quite sure what the rules are, if you will. You know, like they can come to our house at Christmas, but we have to be, cautious about things. And this has really helped us out a lot to understand that other side so that we kind of know boundaries and what we can do because we want to respect them. That's where they're residing, and, we always try to respect their faith.
It's amazing. Seriously.
I think it's what you're supposed to do.
I will agree with you, but not everybody does.
You're right.
Now, I just want to caution, respect doesn't mean that you give up your tradition and your value and your heritage. That would
And I want that's
be
not
a measure of rape.
that I respect the fact that they're taking care of these children.
Beautiful.
And I respect
It's beautiful.
what they're doing. So this
beautiful.
has helped us because we can kind of go in, what are we supposed to do? So, thank you.
I can understand. There's like when you have 613 commandments, there are sensitivities that many people have no or connection to really. I can understand that very well. It's beautiful to hear, though, the sensitivity and respect, I think, is of what we're speaking of right now. Okay, yes, please.
I had a good Jewish friend back east. He told me one day, in his faith, as he was raising his family, the first obligation was prayer. The second obligation was charity. And his father, he was raised in Chicago. His father, he was known in the neighborhood to be a soft touch. If somebody needed financial help, they could always go to him and he'd bail them out. Is this consistent with your approach? Charity and right behind prayer?
I never make, to me, we know so little about God, as much as we know. I mean, what he lets us know we know, but we know so little about God. I try very hard not to measure one commandment against the other, or I don't think I can profess to say that one commandment is more important than the other. In the West, we seem to feel that the social action type things are more important than our direct. In the Ten Commandments, you have two sides, right? It's specifically given in two tablets. They joke that when the Jewish people heard it's free, they asked for two. Right? Moses came to them and wants to give them the commandments. I'm sure we say this joke all the time. But if you look at them, the first five, besides the last one, which is honoring your mother and father, the first five have are between God and humans. The other five are interhuman. It doesn't say anywhere that one side is more important than the other, and if anything, the first five are on the right, and the right side generally in Judaism is seen as the more important side, mystically, not practically in the physical sense. So I don't know. I do know that tzedakah is a very important part of our faith, because in the Torah, God keeps coming back to that. I want to take a little issue with the word charity, because charity in the West is more of a sense of your feeling and your choice. The Hebrew word for charity is tzedakah. Tzedakah is from the root word of tzedek. Tzedek means righteousness. And it has two connotations. If you want to be righteous, you got to do it. And it's the right thing to do. So if I wake up in the morning and I don't feel like giving, it's a commandment of God. I don't have a choice. At least 10, say 20% of what comes to me as a gift from God, even if I'm poor, I have to give 20, 10, even if I'm a recipient of charity, I have to give tzedakah. I have to take part. So it's a lot more than just charity. It's a must. It's one of the commandments is to give tzedakah, to help others. And there's different means. If you look in the Bible, you find different means of how that's. So I can see where they could say it's a very important tenet of our faith, but when you talk about numbering, I'm not wrong. I can't relate to that. It's hard to relate to that.
In context, the neighborhood he was living in was changing. And what was bothering him very deeply was the people who moved in. His upbringing was that if you advanced in life, you reached down and helped the rich person come up the ladder. But in the neighborhood where he was living, he saw people moving, and they stepped up, but couldn't care less about the people left behind. And that was very disturbing.
Okay. I will proudly say, and again, I may be overstepping my bounds. Some historian may come and knock me off my point. I will proudly say that this concept of charity, this Western notion, in fact, if I may, and I'm stepping into territory that's not of mine, and I'm not an expert in it, the Christian value of charity is steeped in the Bible. So as godly people, we have taught the world in a way, all godly people have taught the world, stemming from I say on a pedestal, but Judaism, the concept that charity is not a matter of choice. Charity is a way we act. It's a righteous way to be. It's one of the reasons why, if I may, after 9/11, I was floored. I was so shaken. I heard some pastors, priests, ministers. I don't remember which. And I'm sure there were in the extreme in Judaism. I'm sure there were rabbis that said this, that America paid the price for some kind of our country. Who knows what? I want to tell you an interesting about 9/11. I have a friend who's a rabbi in Oslo, in Norway. Chabad, my organization that I represent here in Oklahoma, is the largest Jewish educational organization in the world. We have a chapter they used to say where there's Coke, there's Chabad. Today there are places that Coke won't go to. The Chabad exists. So we have chapters everywhere. So the rabbi in Oslo, He called me after 9/11. He wanted to share something with me. We always had. He studied with me in New York City. He's an Englishman, a real bred in London. So there was in 9/11 in the Twin Towers. I forgot the name of the company. It's out there. This is not a secret. It was a huge moment. They lost their entire staff, basically, almost their entire staff, and their offices were gone. A competitor gave them office space. He told me that in a European mind, and he doesn't represent all Europeans, but that was what he said. It's anecdotal, basically. He said in a European mind, that even a good person wouldn't think of that. To let a competitor work out of your office? Godly people, I attribute this to the godly foundations of the Christians, the original founders of our country. That godliness, that concept of charity is amazing, and we take it so for granted. But in times of old, when the Bible was teaching this, the norm, for instance, in England, if you look at many of the old plays, you will always find a scene where somebody of an upper class, a lower class, but a poor person wants something from just a poor person. The guy would kick you out of the way. Not because they were people, some of them, all not good people, but it wasn't part of society. You didn't deal with people that were not in your... This American concept that we and the Western world take so much for granted today is a godly gift coming from the Christian founding fathers of this blessed country. And sometimes, again, when we teach our children, we try to talk to our children, we're pestering them with some things instead of showing them some of the powerful, beautiful, foundational things that many people that claim today to go away from religion are some of the values they're fighting for are rooted and they stem from, and their foundation is in religion. Charity is definitely a huge issue in the Bible. It's a huge issue in Judaism. Again, not as something that you do because it feels good or it seems good or you feel it. Because that's what God wants us to do. I'm sure, from a business perspective, I'm sure it wasn't so easy for that company to make that decision. But it's amazing how we got to. And it really bothers me. Are you kidding me? There are certain things about this country that God has ever been, perhaps in history. I'm not saying by me and by others. There's a lot of room for improvement. To slash us, to bang our heads for that, inspire us, tell us how good we are, and that we have to get even better. Yes, our primary focus is the Jewish people, and it actually speaks a little bit to the Chabad in general is very focused on inspiring the next generation of the Jewish community to raise their level of Jewish awareness, Jewish knowledge, Jewish experience, Jewish engagement, from a very positive, joyful, uplifting aspect. And we don't, as I said, we don't recognize any demarcations, any political labels. So when I was working out of Chabad headquarters, I did a study about the Jewish community in Oklahoma City, and I felt that in the last 40 years, that level of knowledge and learning and engagement and experience has diminished. And I felt that it would be, even though it's a small community, I felt it would be very challenging to be able to bring that. Now, obviously, which I can say very comfortably, when you're doing good things, we are good to ourselves more than we are to our families. We're good to our families more than we are to our neighbors. We're good to our neighbors more than we are to our people in our community, etc., etc. There was a great Hasidic sage, one of the good old Jewish sages 300 years ago. He said that when I was young, I wanted to save the world. I wanted to make the world a better place. I got a little older. I wanted to make this country, my country, which was Poland, I wanted to make the country a better place. I got a little bit older and more mature. I wanted to make my city a better place. And he goes from his city to his neighborhood, from his neighborhood to his street, from his street to his family, from his family to him. And he said, finally, I realized that what's my point? When you're generating from inside out godliness and goodness, barriers and boundaries don't happen. I mean, we've, in the tornado, in so many areas here in the community, we've gone way. Our focus, we're a small community, we have a small staff, almost no staff. So our time and effort our mission is to raise up the Jewish community in their knowledge, their experience. But I truly believe that when you're involved in godliness, it never ends there. So I try to encourage people, instead of running to the other end of the world, you want to reach the other end of the world, start at home. And again, not God forbid, I'm not knocking in any way people that run to the other end of the world. It's vital, it's important. The concept. I'm not talking, again, sometimes we get hung up with the practicality. I'm talking about the concept. All right. Yes?
Two things, Rabbi.
Your name? I'm sorry, let's get her. I'm a little on. This is a long week. What was your name?
I'm
Disa? From Brooklyn? Where in Brooklyn? You're a landsman. Park Slope. You know what's going on in Park Slope these days?
It's very expensive.
Yes. I watched it 25 years ago. It was in the slums, literally.
Yeah.
It's like choice property today.
I'm Tom Johnson, Rabbi Goldman. I'm from a sister, Beit HaKnesset, Lutheran Beit HaKnesset congregation over here at the Air Base. I've worshipped with you on occasion.
I remember.
The last couple of years, through you and your wife's invitation, I was your token goy that night. Very much enjoyed it. Two things. One's a suggestion. One is a question. In this age of, you hear the term Christian tradition, the Judaic tradition, it's occurred to me in the last couple of years that a tradition can be started and it can be stopped. In another word like the Christian heritage, the Jewish heritage, does that convey a little more a lineage, a connection that a tradition can be picked up?
Just very briefly, because this would take, this could be a lecture, two, 3 lectures on itself. In Judaism, we take painstakingly, we're almost OCD about separating, even though to us it's part of the heritage, and we take a tradition as serious as law. But nevertheless, we never blur the line. We call it the Jewish heritage, but it's clear to us what is a custom, what is a tradition, what is a rabbinic enactment, what is a biblical command. So within that body of heritage, those distinctions are very important to us, again, for being intellectually honest and for clarity. So we try not to blur that. Okay? I hope that answered your question. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to hold you any longer. I hope you learned something. I hope that I'm not sure sometimes if I'm responding to questions are they're very limiting, they're defining. So I hope, and I want to thank you really, really very much. I didn't meet your pastor, but on the phone, it was almost evident to me. First of all, your letter, just the choice of words the letter was written, it was evident to me that I would like to have a comfortable conversation here tonight. And to me, that's a sign of godliness when there's that openness and that comfort. So I want to thank you very, very much for this opportunity, and to bless you to continue raising our community. Amen. Okay. Very welcome. If you ever get into a sensitive question, you know where to find me now. Okay? Thank you. There's a question of how to engage or how not to engage. I'll try to help. Shabbat. Shabbat is the Sabbath, the day of rest that God speaks about. 6 days of. Oh, Shabbat. Chabad is an acronym. The name Chabad is an acronym for Chachma Bina Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge.
Okay, because I asked my cousin who converted, her father actually, and I didn't get a good answer.
Many people don't. It's
an education.
Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. To us, heart is very important, but a heart that's not guided by intellect is very dangerous.
Right.
We need heart. Heart is very important, but some people say, "Oh, do what feels good." We would say, "No way.
Sometimes that
what
turns
feels good is
into-
horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible." Our hearts will twist our minds in pretzels to justify what our hearts want.
Okay. We had a very strange conversation. And I wonder
When you say we, who's we?
in our group circle that we met, okay, we're into the area where they're talking about circumcision and not circumcision, depending on, they're Gentiles, can they become Jews? What is the feeling on that now? Are the Jewish rituals still the same? Absolutely for the Jewish.
Is God the same God? So
But I'm saying.
how does His word change?
Right. But I mean, what about if somebody comes in and they're Gentile
That
and they want to be Jews?
we'll chop them.
You what?
We'll make a chopping job.
Really?
Well, sure, they must. You can't be Jewish without being circumcised.
Is that right? Okay.
It's the basic covenant. It's the basic covenant that God gives to Abraham and his children.
Right.
And his children. It's the basic covenant.
Right. And I understand that, but I wondered whether things had drifted.
Sure, in the conservative reform movement and the non-traditional movement, sure things have drifted.
But see,